Alright, so in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to stabilize move-in footage inside of After Effects. So first of all I'm going to import my footage, so I'll double click in this area and it's keyboard shot that I want to work with, and I'll click the first image and then the whole sequence will import. Now I've got a sequence of TIFF images, and remember when I import a sequence of TIFF images, for some reason it likes to read it at 30 frames per second. So you want to change that to 25 frames per second for UK. So go to interpret footage, right click interpret footage, and then main, and you'll get this window. All you need to do is change this to 25. And then we're good to go. So I'm going to click and drag this down into the new composition window. And let's just have a quick look at this footage. It's something I just very quickly shot. It's the keyboard that's right in front of me. So you can see straight off that this shot, there's quite a lot of movement in there, but we'll have a look when it's all cached in at the bottom. Now, so we've got 1 second left to cache, and then we'll be good to have a watch of it. So give it a second, and this will be what we're working with. Okay, so you can see that there's quite a bit of movement in this, and let's say for example you wanted this shot to be absolutely static, so that's what we're going to be focusing on achieving today. So I'll click stop. Now there's two ways of doing this. The way I'm going to show you is via the warp stabilizer. So if you were to go onto the right hand panel, go to your tracker. If you can't see that anywhere in here on the right, go to window, and then just click the tracker there and it'll pop up. So we got it here. Now there's two ways of doing it. You can manually do it, or warp stabilizer, it actually I find gives you a lot better results. So if you click this, it'll pop up, make sure your footage is selected, it'll pop up, and then all of a sudden it starts analysing the footage. So you've got to let it do its thing. It's going to analyse your footage, and then it's going to straight away try and stabilise it. So it works very quickly. You click warp stabilizer and it's already doing step 1 of 2. It's very intuitive and it doesn't make you do a lot of work. We will be fiddling around with a few of the options and I'll be telling you why and what they do, but it's actually quite good. So I'm going to pause this video because it can take a few minutes sometimes to do it, but it's on step 1 of 2 at the moment, so I'll pause it when we're done. Okay, so we're back inside of After Effects and it's gone through both stages for me. And if we were to play this through right now, let's click and drag. I'm going to pull this down to 3rd resolution so it previews a bit faster. So what you'll probably notice first of all is, there's still a bit of movement in there. So if we were to, I'll just give you a walkthrough just as this is previewing, you can still see there's movement. There's 2 results. One of them is smooth motion, but if you were to click this drop down, it says no motion. So the difference between these is, let's say you've got a handheld shot, heavy camera, somebody's doing a handheld panning shot from left to right, and you want it's quite shaky because somebody's doing a handheld. What this result, smooth motion, does, it still has your motion in there, so say you're panning left to right or back and forth like I am in this one. It gets rid of all those minor little shakes, say it's done with a hand. And obviously the other result, which I'll show you in a second, so let's just pause this. You can see, yeah, there's still a bit of movement in there. So the smooth motion is just smoothing that out so there's no harsh shakes. Now if you were to go to no motion, that's basically absolutely still. So let's click that and you can see it's doing another little stabilize. Now let's give that, let's just render the first second so we don't have to wait too long. What that's going to do is it's going to eliminate all motion, and so ideally you'd want it to almost look like a picture, but you can still tell that it's footage because there's grain in there, and there's a little bit of motion blur because the only issue you'll have with this is as the camera was going left and right there would have been a little bit of motion blur, and you can see some of that still in there. And if I were to up this to full, it would actually look a bit better, so the lines are wobbling a bit there, but if we were to up this to full, it would start looking a bit better. So it's completely, you can see there's grain in there, but it's completely still now, whereas before it wasn't. So that's the first bit, this result. Now there's a few different ways. Let's come down to the method bit. There's a couple different ways. If you click position, it'll only stabilize the position. So you can, let's give it a little go. Only does the position, so there's still a little bit of rotation and scale in there. You can see it's scaling up because when I was using the camera I went a little bit closer to the keyboard. So this method of position only stabilizes the left, right, up and down, so X and Y axis. Whereas if we change it to position, scale and rotation, that's the one I've never used, just position. Well, I would depending on the shot, but let's have a look at this one. So position, scale and rotation, so it's stabilizing these three things, and you can see then it's kind of almost like we saw earlier, but there's a little bit of warping going on. You can see it kind of there, and that's just the way it stabilized it. So the way it kind of gets rid of that is subspace warp is the one I like to use if I can, if it looks alright, and this looks a lot better. There's none of that sort of nasty warping, and all of a sudden this would be the same. I don't want to preview the whole shot, I'll show you very quickly. But it would be the same for the full shot because that's what it's doing. So this is a very, very, very quick way of doing it. Warp stabilizer, and it would be done for the whole shot. So let's just preview in the full shot just so I can show you. And then I'll go over this final drop down by here: stabilize, crop, and auto scale. So before I preview the whole shot, let's just do that. So you've got a few options. Stabilize only. Let's have a look at what that does. So when we play this back, you can see this border, it's got this weird black border around the outside. Now, what the software is doing is it's tracked the motion in the actual footage itself, and then it stabilizes the content and moves the frame, the edge frame around, so it has this black border, and you don't want that. And if you did it the old way, which was stabilize motion down here, then you'd have to scale the footage up yourself to get rid of these areas, which is what this does. So you can either crop, which just crops the whole image and doesn't really sort it out. So you can see if we play this back now, it's cropped those moving parts, but we've still, got this black border. So again, the difference between a stabilize only, it's moving the whole frame around to compensate for the movement. So you can see that by there on the bottom. Then crop, all it does is it takes it in, sort of by here, and eliminates this edge. So stabilize and crop will do that. And then stabilize, crop, and auto scale makes it fill the frame. So now you do lose a bit of the edges, yeah you do, but that'll happen with stabilization, and that's how it works. But now we've got it filling the whole frame. So I'm going to, just to prove that this works for the whole shot, I'm going to preview this back in, and I'll pause it while it's caching, and then I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so you join me back, and what we've got here, the shot's playing throughout, and you can see it's stabilized, and you can still see some of that grain in there. So comparing this to what we had before, let's stop this, and let's turn this warp stabilizer off. Comparing this to what we had before, we had a fairly shaky shot, and that's let's just give it a second to preview in. But you can already see that movement in there. If I just play back the first 2 seconds, just give it a second to preview. Yeah, so if I just play back these first 2 seconds, you can see there's a huge difference. And when we turn the warp stabilizer on, you can see it's completely stabilizing it. So that's how you use the warp stabilizer in After Effects. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next tutorial, where we'll be match moving.